What is up? We're back with a new spotlight. This time, we're highlighting Cillian Murphy, who you may have just seen in A Quiet Place. And we're going to go through a lot of films in his career. Not all of them because there are way too many. It would take us forever. But I'm going to start off with 28 Days Later, which I actually just recently watched for the first time. It's a Danny Boyle film. He's a great director. And I was really surprised on how much I liked this film, at least through the first two acts. He gives a really strong performance. I love the concept of him being someone who, wakes up in a hospital 28 days after the apocalypse has happened, essentially. And these people have, they're not technically zombies. They just have like this rage thing, but they're zombies. Um, and he portrays like this really human side of a character. And he's really great in all these small character moments as a lead. And I think he really carries the story emotionally, and I think that's completely through performance. Because the script's like it seems like it's fine, but I think he really elevates the material. So I was very impressed with his performance there, and I think it's a good tone setter for what was to come in his career. Let's move on to Batman Begins. We've both seen this, maybe more famous as Scarecrow. But Nick, what were your thoughts about him the first time you saw this performance?
It's funny that you say that like in 20 Days Later he's like this very like human persona. Because with Scarecrow, even though he's like one of the three different villains in the movie, he stands out for being this really like large cipher. He's very like impersonable. He's very, especially for the first two acts before like spoilers for Batman Begins, when he gets like drugged with his own stuff. Like he's a very like cold, calculating, like set in like one emotional like space, but it works for the version of the character where it is this like more psychological being. And I do love that they put him up against Christian Bale, just because it's like, Christian Bale just has a naturally bigger frame than Murphy. So I thought the idea of like having this classical uh, brain versus brawn thing, I think Murphy embodied really well. He has hits this level of like creepy, but also in a way kind of like cocky, that I like, very subtle type of cocky that I think is just very works to the version of this version of the Scarecrow.
Yeah, I think his physicality is really underrated. And he's really good at embodying characters in the way that he moves. And that's something that not a ton of actors have. If you look closely, if someone walks like their character, a lot of times you have someone who has a more timid character, but they walk confidently. And it's the little things like that that can really make a difference. You can kind of get into psychology, like in where he's at in a specific scene by the way that he's walking. And that's something I noticed that stood out to me. I love him as an adversary for Batman. He plays that, like you said, he plays the brains very well. Um, in the third act, when Batman just hits him with the taste of his own medicine, I mean, it's just I think it's a really excellent performance.
Mhm. And it's just great because it's a Batman Begins is essentially an ensemble cast. The amount of like different heroes and villains they got, so the fact that he stood out like that always says something when you manage to still make your mark amidst a large cast, especially with cast that's like Gary Oldman, Michael Caine, Christian Bale, etc.
Yeah, let's move on to Inception because this is one of my favorite films of the decade,
Yeah,
or I guess the old decade. We're in the 2020s now, but the 2010s, or is it the 2000s? I don't remember if it was
I think
2008 or
I think
2010.
2010. I think
Yeah,
so.
I get my dates mixed up, but this is one of the first like big films I really remember seeing in theaters,
Mhm.
and I thought he was really great in the supporting role. But Nick, before I get all the way into it, you want to break down your thoughts?
Yeah, again, another, even I think even a potentially bigger ensemble cast, and he still like makes it, especially like in Batman Begins, he's the villain. In Inception, he's like the target. Like, he's the one they're pulling the heist on. And I feel like with that type of character, when you're not really the villain, you're just sort of like, I don't know, sort of almost a plot point. It says a lot when you're able to still give the character so much like pathos and so much empathy. And like, of course, that could be that's credited to the writing, but I think also like Murphy does a really great job in like Murphy does and I you'll see this as we go on, but like Murphy does a really great job portraying like broken characters, like characters who are like barely like it's like a like they're holding it together, but it's like stitched together, like they're barely holding on. And I thought, especially in a movie that has like 10 million things going on, hallways turning upside down, it's like it says a lot that he is really one of the really like human centers of the film. And I think it's again like he is able to make so much of what is still like a pretty small role, and I think that's pretty awesome. He brings out so much out of it.
Yeah, and I'd say the final scene with him in the dream, it gets confusing a little bit with which layer of the dream they're in, but the they're in the compound and they get the password, or I can't remember exactly what it was that they get, but and it's just the final scene with him and his dad, right? And I thought that scene was really emotionally touching, and I think it hammered home the humanness. Uh, as it's weird looking back on the film and being like, yeah, he's one of the people I remember from the film, amongst Elliot Page, amongst
DiCaprio,
Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hardy.
right?
He does stand out in this movie in his own way.
Mm-hmm.
And normally a role like that is just kind of meant to be there,
Right.
and he adds an extra layer to that role, and I think that's what makes him. That's the showing of a good actor.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's move on to a show, Nick, that I know you really love, and that's I haven't gotten around to seeing this. That's Peaky
Yeah.
Blinders.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a rundown of why he's so good in the show?
Yeah, I mean it's the recurring theme thus far has been him great at supporting roles. So for him to finally like ascend to lead role is it's honestly so good. He pulls off the character of Tommy Shelby synthesizes a lot of what we've been talking about. Like he's able to bring out like the humanity in a character very like quickly, but also very quietly. He's also able to portray like the brain and the very like focused person very effectively. And in keeping with the type of characters he plays, this is another character that's just to keep the away from spoilers. He's a character that's also like just barely like holding it together. He's like stitches are tearing. Like it's a very fascinating performance, especially as just like things happen throughout the season, stakes get higher, and him and his family like just barely keep ahead of the bad guys. It's really fascinating to watch him just work through so many, work through the whole emotional spectrum, but also like, um, you know, because of how the character is, he's not a very expressive character. So you see that play out in like the facial expressions. You see that and played in his like in his body language. It just you tell so much from so little, which as I think we've said by then now, Murphy, like that seems to be Murphy's calling card, is just making is it being able to communicate so much even if not much is being said in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive that he does that. And I mean, it's going to come on to the next film,
Mm-hmm.
um, Dunkirk. Nick, when you first saw Dunkirk, it's a big film,
Yeah.
you know, it's a pretty big action film,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a core to it. What did you think about Cillian Murphy and his role in that
I
film?
Well, like, I don't want to like keep my repeating myself, but like there's a like his character isn't even giving a name. If you check like IMDb, he's just referred to as like the shivering soldier. But even then, like he's such a critical part of Dunkirk split into like three separate stories. He's such a critical part of his story. And even though he's not given a name, he's not given like a background, the other characters he interacts with, they literally just find him stranded
Yeah,
in the ocean and they go from there. um, Here I get he plays the desperation, sort of broken angle a lot more. In this one, he's PTSD ridden, shivering soldier, and so like to see him like before it was him like just barely holding it. Now we see him like really like just like unable. He's just like going all over the place. Really just has let it go. And I still think it's like a pretty like solid like just supporting performance. Again, another movie where there's like 10 million characters like talking, 10 million things happening amidst them. Um, but I think like especially think I think like um his story out of all the other three, that particular one on the boat is like the most intimate. So he
Mhm.
gets to just like play off the other characters a lot. They don't have to worry about like explosions or whatever. It's just he's really the driving force of the conflict that occurs there. So I think again it's pretty cool to see how um he's able to just like go from 1 to 10 and then like go back again, and it's like you never know where he's going to end up. It's a very like unpredictable type of um performance, and he's a very unpredictable type of performer, so it works out, especially even amidst all the chaos of the movie.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add on. The one thing I will say before we move on to the next film is that Nolan chose to work with him again for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, and it's because he's that talented of an actor.
Hmm.
And he's worked with him, what, three different films?
Yeah, three different
Yeah,
films.
yeah. That's when you know, especially with someone who's the top tier director like Nolan, that's when you know you're killing it.
For sure.
And he kills it in his next performance, and that's in A Quiet Place too. Um, I didn't know where this character was going to go based on the trailers. I
Yeah.
really didn't. He seemed like a semi protagonist, but I was like, has he, with the beard grown out?
Yeah.
He looked very dystopian, looks like he could have gone crazy. As he's talking about, you don't know what it's like
Hmm.
anymore. You don't know what people are like now. You know, he gives off a vibe like he may be one of those people when he says that
Yeah.
line. And it really has you on eggshells. But as we kind of the flashback informs who he was before, um, and the way that he just talks about, even there's just a nonchalant line where he just kind of drops the fact that his whole family's dead.
Hmm.
Um, and it's the way that he talks about having to leave his wife that I'm just like, oh God. Like after the screaming, I had to leave her like 11 weeks ago. And he just throws it out there because he wants to get right past it. Right. And the way that he delivers a line like that tells you exactly where the character's mind is. You know what I mean? Um, and he's someone who's willing to make the tough decisions and kind of lost his humanity. And I think throughout the film, him gaining his humanity back through his journey with Millicent Simmons
Yeah.
was really, really powerful. Um, Especially in the final scene when he's willing to like sacrifice himself for this
Yeah.
girl.
Yeah. It's like I like we said this in our review, and this is necessarily not necessarily about Murphy, but I guess more to the writing. But like, I really am glad they didn't make him like, oh, he's like a helping hand until he's revealed he's like a psycho or like whatever. Like, I like that he was just like a really like broken person, and like there is again just similar themes with the characters Murphy has played and excels in. This character is just fully given up. Like he's done with it. Um, and I do like, in a way it's funny because this is the most, in a way, the most heroic of Murphy's characters. Like there is like he gets a redemption story, and I do appreciate that. I think he plays off well against Millicent Simmons. Again, in a funny way, he's like still the supporting character to her especially, but he's able to just um like mine just so much emotion. And even in things like we don't see his family die, we even only see like the aftermath of their deaths, but you get the sense like how much it just like snapped this guy into, and how much he's just I'm done with this. Like I really don't care. And you could have made a great Joel, I think. Like not just because like the story in a way is very similar to Last of Us, but like that type of like sort of broken but redemptive type, or broken character in search of redemption, I think is something that Murphy plays really well in A Quiet Place. And again, it's just refreshing because this is maybe his most like kind of heroic character, his most sympathetic. And he who's the actor, and he appeared, I think Toshiro Mifune appeared a lot of Akira Kurosawa's films, very similar. Like he could have like 4 minutes of screen time, but he will act the hell out of those 4 minutes. I think no matter
Yeah.
how small or big the role in the moment is. And Murphy, I think, does that very well. Subtle, like broken, loud, and unhinged. I think he's a guy. He's a really underrated just actor for how much he can just what he can communicate within whatever type of role when within whatever type of screen time and writing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's had a pretty amazing career so far, and to think that he still has a lot of time ahead of him, I'm excited to see where it goes. Guys, let us know what you guys think of Cillian Murphy down in the comment section down below. What is your favorite performance from him? Is it A Quiet Place? Is it Peaky Blinders? Batman Begins? Dunkirk? 28 Days Later? Let us know down in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video, and we'll see you next time.
Peace out.